been some time since we've had an episode, but things have been crazy busy, and in the spirit of the show, things are going to continue on, and we're going to try and get more regular updates going in. So an update on the last beer, North Kildare Reaper Bastard Dog number 1. This beer was, interesting to say the least. I've actually given it out to a couple of people and I had pretty mixed results to it. To be honest, it was an awful lot better than I thought it was going to be, given the fact that it was an incredibly difficult beer style to go and start with. Double IPA, you don't just jump into doing a double IPA, or you do if you're me. And it seemed to turn out pretty well. A lot of people seemed to enjoy it. People I've given it to enjoyed it. Had a couple of interesting bits of feedback, which again I think are going to help me with the next couple of beers that we're going to be doing. And getting into that, speaking of the next couple of beers, the next couple of beers have sort of been changed. What was originally going to happen was I was going to look at doing the chocolate peanut butter stout next. And what happened was we're getting into the summer and I kind of wanted to change that around a little bit. And I wanted to hang off that till maybe a little bit later in the year. Stouts in summer, just not really, I'm not a big fan of stouts or those kind of beers during the summer. They don't feel like beers to be making or to be drinking during the summer for whatever reason to me anyway. So I decided I was going to do is, hey, well then I'll bring my Pacific Bloom IPA up a notch, and that's going to happen, but that's going to be an August brew day now. So I was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do for July? And kind of, July chose itself in one respect. And it chose itself for a number of reasons. Number one, Bo Bristol are doing their launch of their new Smoky Bacon beer this month, which I've tried yesterday. It was amazing. I suggest you go and try it. It's intense, put it that way. And I love their Bo Bristol Amber. I really, really like that. And the second thing that sort of drove this month's brew day, and it's actually today is going to be the brew day for this, was actually Stone Brewing's announcement of Stone Berlin. And I decided, you know what, I am a huge fan of Levitation by Stone. Absolutely massive fan of it. It's one of my favourite beers that they do. It's very, very aggressive American amber style. And I love their kind of approach of, you know what, let's not do something because it's different. Let's do something different to be better. And I'm like, okay, so I am pretty much a child of Stone's marketing when it comes to beer in one respect. And a lot of people, I think, get that from the way that the podcast tends to be presented and everything else. And the way I go about things relating to beer. So I was like, okay, I like their beer. I don't want to do a clone of Levitation. I want to do something which I think is kind of in the spirit of it, like taking things and putting them together because you can, to see what happens. And the end result is that I'm going to do what I like to call as my interpolation of trying to see what happens when I make an IPA and American Amber kind of cross. Which sounds a bit weird, and again I'm kind of pushing my own boundaries here with this, because again it's a learning experience of what happens when you play with different things in different ways. So the end result is that this is going to be my beer kit, which is the Cooper's Selection Sparkling Ale. I really like this because it's very fruity, and again I kind of like that feeling in beers that are like this. And it's very malty, and this one is particularly nicely hopped, but it's not overly hopped. And there's a world of difference between this and the bottled version of Cooper Sparkling Ale, anyone who's ever had it. Now, I'm not using the yeast from this. That's the one thing. So I'm using this because I like the base tastes that are in that kind of beer, and I like the characteristics that it says it's in it. So very fruity, esters, full malty palate, generally hopped, clean finish in the style. And you're kind of looking at yourself going, okay, how is that going to get amber? Well, this is my interpolation of what the amber is going to be. And it's going to be an amber malt extract from Muntons, about 1.5 kilos of this. Now, you kind of look at yourself, okay, so you've got your liquid malt extract. Where's some of the other sugars coming from? Well, overnight I have had about 150 grams of this steeping in about 1.5 litres of water. I've taken a 1 to 10. And that's based off a couple of bits and pieces of advice that I've gotten from some other homebrewers on YouTube and a couple other people I'd spoken to. And that has been cold steeping overnight, and that is a Pearl Pale Malt. Again, the reason I chose Pearl was the characteristics of that and the things that I was looking to marry with the sparkling and with some of the hops that I'm going to be using. 'Cause some of the hops I'm going to be using, I'm going to be throwing in some Magnum, going to be putting in some Falconers Flight, going to be putting in some Chinook, going to be putting in some Summit. There's going to be a little bit of Citra going in there, and there's going to be some Challenger going in there as well. So there's quite an awful lot of hops going on. There's no specialty crap going on with this at all. Nothing weird going in. No oak chips. No nothing else. I wanted to just start playing around with the idea of the cold steep, because the cold steep is something that I'm going to be using in a couple of other beers. So I figured this was a good opportunity to use it. The last beer I used, or last beer kit I used, which was the Evil Dog beer kit, it didn't actually require me to put anything in there in terms of like a dry malt extract or anything. It was just literally full kit come together and put together. So I was like, okay, I need to push myself a little bit forwards with this. So I wanted to see what it's like to play around with liquid malt extract. One of my friends, when he was doing his homebrew, he played around with some dry malt extract quite a bit. And I didn't want to get into the thing of using like Cooper's beer enhancers. I wanted to push myself that little bit further. I find when I push myself or give myself like a really difficult objective, I have to focus an awful lot more, and I think I learn an awful lot more in the process, and that's just like how I like to learn. So I decided to go with the liquid malt extract and to go with a cold steep going in as well. So I think what's going to happen is that I'll take my cold steep, I'll strain it, I'll do a second runnings on it on through the materials as well, which will hopefully bring me up to about 3 litres, maybe 4 litres of material. What I'll do is then I'll bring that to the boil, to like a rolling boil, so I can start seeing how much I can reduce it down. I'll add my liquid malt extract to that at that point, and then what I'll do is I'll do a very, very slow sort of 30-minute period of time with that, where what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some of my hops to it, so I can actually sort of bring the bitterness levels up. And the bitterness levels in the sparkling ale aren't particularly high as it is. They're kind of alrightish. They're around sort of, I think it's about 35 to 45 IBUs, which is not incredibly bitter. And I don't want this beer to be really bitter either, but I want to start bringing in some of the flavours, some of those hops that I have. And I've got some hops for literally for flame out, and I've got a couple of more hops that I have for some dry hopping too. Now the next thing that I'm going to be doing with this beer as well, which again is a complete learning curve change, again my second beer, I like to do things like not by halves, I like to do it at whole. No bottling. I am going straight to a Cornelius keg, or a Corny keg as they're called. Cornelius keg, for those who don't know, is basically one of those soft drink syrup kegs that you usually see from PepsiCo or the Coca-Cola company. They're about 19 litres, they're about sort of 8 inches wide, and they're maybe like about 18 inches tall. And you usually see them when they're going in and out of fast food joints, when they're bringing in the syrups that they go and mix with the carbonated water, or the soda water for Americans, that you see when you're getting your soft drinks. So I've got like 2 of those on the way to me, because from here on out I'm no longer bottling as my way to go. I've decided that I'm going to use corny kegs and just go kegging. The reason being is I'm in an apartment, it's small, I need space, I want to keep having a couple of beers on the go. I can't afford to have 40 bottles all bottle fermenting and then trying to get crates stacking all the way up. If I could do that, I think my other half will murder me, and rightly so. Considering how tight we are for space in a small ass apartment. So it's going to be corny kegs. It means that I can start gassing them with sort of little gas cylinders. I can get a tap kit for them, and it just means that I can start drinking the beer straight away by force carbonating. Now I know that's kind of cheating in one respect, and it's not using bottle fermentation, but I want to try something different. I mean, if you think about it, when the commercial beers are done, yes, they go into the fermentation tank, but an awful lot of commercial beers, even craft beers that are commercialized, tend to get force carbonated. So that's what's actually going to happen. And I'm actually really looking forward to this process as well. It's learning what it's like to live with a keg, popping it open, dry hopping it even more. And I think for the dry hopping, I'm actually not going to be anywhere near as aggressive as I was with Bastard Dog number 1, because I think that was just ridiculously aggressive. I think it was so aggressive that so much of it got lost in the process, and it killed it too much. So I think with this one it's going to be like small amounts dry hopping. I mean, it is only going to be about 19 litres of beer by the end of it being done. And so yeah, today is brew day. I'm really happy that I'm getting back to doing another homebrew, doing another beer, starting it. I'm going to try to take photos of things that I'm doing as I'm going along, where I can get video, I'll do video as well, and I'll try and see if I can just put it together. I have a whole heap of backlog of videos I need to go and edit and put together still. And I'm hoping that today, while I'm actually waiting on my work to cool, I'll be able to sit there and start putting those videos together and make that happen. Remember, if you want to follow this series on Twitter, you can follow it at BastardDogBeers. As always, it's up on 11pmsomewhere.com/BastardDogs, and it's also on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/11pmsomewhere, and it's in the Bastard Dogs playlists. Thanks.